Hello, friends. Hello, hello. I'm going to give a second for our guest to show up as I need to bring her on live. This is a live reading for a manifesting generator. So if you're new to human design, if you don't know much about human design, this would be a great live for you to be on. Because you'd get to learn about what kind of information is available in the chart. And can't cover all of it because it's a lot and we'd be on live for like 2 hours, but we are going to cover quite a bit and you'll be able to at least have an insight into like what to expect from a human design reading. I do have two options for human design readings as well. I can do it live with you, would be a lot like this conversation you're about to witness where I'm walking you through your report, and then there's another option where you just get a PDF printout. I personally feel like live is a lot better because you get to ask questions, you get to like hear more of my own channeled insight into your chart, but a lot of people choose the PDF option and that's totally fine. It's all about, you know, what you're available for and what you feel ready for. So it's all good. I am going to send a request to Lauren. And, oh, she's there. Hi.
Hello.
You look sideways.
Oh, crap.
There you go.
I know, but my phone won't sit this way. That's the problem. That is the problem in my world right now, is my phone won't sit up like this because my charger's charging.
Oh, I know, because you have that bottom piece plugged in.
Yeah.
You know
I
what
don't know.
It could be helpful is I've done this before, is I've actually sat it in a cup, like an empty cup, because the bottom is open, and then I've like supported behind it with like a book or something like that. I've actually done that.
If I can just set you up like this. There we go.
So,
just can't touch anything.
hello.
I don't know where my tripod is. I have a tripod somewhere, but you know.
You're moving though. It's like,
yeah, I have no idea where it is.
It's fine.
It's fine.
It's totally fine. So hello everyone.
Welcome.
I'm so happy to have someone on live with me because I tried to do this with my reflector and it just did not work out on the platform that we were on. So like, this is very exciting for me to be able to do. So I was just kind of cluing everybody in. We're going to go through like the basics of your chart. And this is particularly exciting because I did your chart over a year ago. And so in revisiting it, I have a very different lens after doing like 8,000 charts. I've been doing charts now for a long time. And the things that I'm paying attention to or curious about have changed. Those things have kind of like adjusted based on like my own interests and the things that I'm personally interested in, like my manifestation teachings and stuff like that. So a lot of that is going to come out here in our conversation. Hello, Kari. Yes,
I'm selfishly excited.
Yes. Well, you know, and for anyone who's watching who wants to do this live with me, the only requirement is that you had to have purchased a reading with me before. So even if it was a year ago and you're like, okay, I had a reading a while ago, but I wouldn't mind being live because this is a very great educational resource for anybody who wants to learn about human design, is that I did already do your chart. So if I did your chart a year ago or a while ago, it's fine. I will be needing a generator. So if you're a generator and you don't mind being live and you want to do something like this with me, then, you know, let me know if you're one of my clients. I did also have some links up here for you all, but those have since disappeared for some reason. So just places where you can get more information about readings and human design, but I'll post that in the comments when I'm done with the video. All right, so I have Miss Lauren's chart here with me, and I have scribbled all over it because I did like notes as the things I wanted to not forget to mention. And so one thing I always start off with is paying attention to this picture that we call a body graph. So the information that human design gives us is your energy blueprint. So when you were conceived, when your design crystal was conceived, which was 3 months before you were born. Obviously that was when you were conceived, but that's 3 months before you physically came into the world. That's when your design crystal, which is this side of your chart, gets set. And then when you are born and you enter the world, that's when your personality crystal is gets set. So you have two different pieces of information in your design, and together they make this thing called a body graph. You'll notice there are 9 centers here in the body graph. Part of the information that Ra, who is the founder of human design, was given from the voice is that the humans underwent evolution in 1781, where the heart center actually split, and so did the solar plexus center. So we are no longer 7-centered beings. We are actually 9-centered beings, and we are moving into the trajectory of the 12-centered being over time. So if you study with people who know a lot about chakras, they actually talk about the 12 chakras now. They talk about it as existing. The information that Ra was given is that we are not fully embodying those 12 yet, but that we will be. So his information is not discordant with the chakras. It's actually very concordant. It's just different timelines for what most people talk about when they talk about chakras, okay? So what makes Miss Lauren a manifesting generator is, first of all, she has this little orange square colored in her chart. It is red. This is the sacral center, and the sacral center is what makes anybody a generator, whether you're just a generator or a manifesting generator. But then the other thing that makes her a manifesting generator, the thing that gives her the manifesting wing in her design, is that she has her sacral directly connected to her throat. So she has a defined throat, and she has her sacral connected to her throat through her identity center, through the G center. So if you are a manifesting generator, you are either going to have a direct connection to a motor of some kind. Well, it wouldn't be this way. It would be like this way, or this way, or this way all the way to the bottom. Or the will center, oh my God, it's so tiny, like this. Or you would have indirect. So in her case, it's indirect because it's passing through the identity center and then going into the throat, okay? If you were a manifester, which is a different type, you would have a channel directly connected to the throat, but it wouldn't be a motor, okay? So a motorized throat is what makes you a manifesting generator. And actually in human design, the throat is also considered a motor. Different kind of the root, the sacral, or the will, okay? So this is what makes her design manifesting generator. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is the manifesting generator aura. So the manifesting generator aura is not its own aura. It is a subdivision of the generator aura. A lot of times I see people teaching about human design and they're like, there are 5 types. There aren't 5 types. There are 4 auras. The manifesting generator is a generator that behaves slightly differently than a pure generator. The manifesting generator is a lot faster in operation than a generator. They tend to think faster. They tend to have way more interests at one time. They tend to be able to multitask and juggle a lot of things simultaneously. They're very curious creatures, and they move super fast. And that is like their gift. They're fast at like everything. They can create something fast. They process stuff fast. They move through things fast. And it's also a detriment because they skip stuff a lot of times. And because they can move so fast, they will skip like foundational things when they're building or when they're processing. Then they have to go back and revisit the process to layer in the stuff that they like pummeled over basically in their process. I find it interesting. In quantum human design, we call the manifesting generator the time bender, because that's exactly how the aura functions. It just warps time with how quickly it can do things. One of the things I tell all of my manifesting generators is that, you know, that whole adage of like pick one thing and focus on it does not apply to you like at all. So when people are like, just focus on one thing, that's great advice for a generator. That's great advice for someone who's a very stair-step learner and has a very specific process by which they learn, but not for a manifesting generator. And also when it comes to things like profession and career, creativity is huge for the man-gen. So like if you are not engaging in your creativity, you feel deadened inside. So having multiple projects is really important, because not everything that you're doing will be for money. Not everything that you're doing will be to sustain you. In fact, those might be very separate things, like what you do for creativity and what you do for sustenance. However, all of it matters, because if you're not actually engaging in the things that light you up, then your aura is dimmed, and that's when you land in your frustration and anger, which we will get into in a moment. So I just want to ask you, Lauren, as a manifesting generator, has this been accurate? Is my description of the aura really resonating with your experience of being one?
Yeah, that is totally me. All of it.
Okay.
And it's funny because my husband's a generator, so he's very like step by step, and I'm like, how can we do it faster? Like I'm gonna skim through the instructions, and I'm just gonna do it my way, the way it looks.
Right.
I'm constantly like, he's constantly like, did you follow the instructions? No, I did not follow the instructions. I did it my way. Yes. And that's what you get.
And he's like, and now this isn't structurally sound, so we have to go back.
Now we have to go back. But I got it done. I got it done fast.
You did. That's it. That's the man gen thing.
Right.
The other thing about that,
I even can like talk about the having to have like multiple things going, because like I'm like, I crave it. I'm like, oh, I'm curious about this. I want to dive into this. I'm like curious about this. I want to dive into this. And when I'm not diving into different things, or like looking at different things, or like diving in even into like different courses or trainings, or like myself, I feel very like,
Yep,
for sure.
So has there been a time in your life where you kind of tried to force yourself to just do one thing? And then how did that feel when you tried to do that?
I feel like I constantly was almost, and now I know this analogy now, but looking back, it was almost like kept hitting walls, right? Like I had the ideas, I could see the big picture, but because I was trying to just like pigeonhole myself into one thing and focus on like one thing, I just kept like, no matter what I tried, right? Oh, I'm going to try doing it this way, hit a wall. Oh, I'm going to try do it this way, hit a wall. I'm going to try do it this way, hit a wall, versus opening my mind up to like, oh, maybe this is just an avenue, and I'm going to try this other thing that's totally unrelated, but it's also something that lights me up, right? So it might be a totally different like business opportunity, or a totally different whatever. It still lights me up, but I tried to like, I have to make this one thing work, otherwise X, Y, and Z, right?
And plus, you know, we're all trained to focus on one thing at a time. That's like a thing. Like we're all told that. And it's like, well, what if your aura doesn't do well focusing on one thing at a time? And so I just made a TikTok video about this. Like, please pick a mentor who understands this as a basis, because this is pivotal. I can't tell you my own frustrations as a projector trying to fit into a business model that was not meant for me, you know, and how much failure I faced. And I felt like I was the problem. Like, oh, I must be terrible at this because I'm not getting any result. And it was like, girl, no, it's just your approach was wrong for you. You know, and I had access to great mentors and everything. And it just didn't work. You know,
I've even noticed this with my daughter, who's a manifesting generator. Like, she has a hard time just like sitting and watching a movie, where my son can sit and watch a movie, and she's like watches it for 5 minutes and has to get up and go do something, and then comes back and then gets up and goes and do something, or like she just has a hard time just like focusing on one thing, where he can sit down and focus on a movie, watching a movie. She's like watching it mainly and then go do something else, come back, you know? So like even her, she has a hard time doing one thing.
That's so interesting. And like, you know that now because we've talked so much about this. So when you're parenting her, instead of saying, Parker, you need to sit down and focus on one thing, you're like, oh, she's being a manifesting generator. Like, she's doing the thing. You know, that's just how they're designed. That's how they're designed. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about the emotional theme of the aura for anybody else too who's watching, or if you know a manifesting generator, please share this video with them, like tag them. This will be very helpful for them to understand the basics of working with your aura. I also have developed since Aura Basics. It's a course. You can find it on my site, shaktireels.com, under where it says courses. When you hover over courses, there's a drop-down menu that says Aura Basics, and you can find yours there. It's $37, and I cover things like parenting, work, relationships, all the basics of how to manage your aura. It's I think they're amazing and super insightful for anybody who's beginning the journey and doesn't know yet if they want to dive in deeper. Like, this is a great way for you to start that journey. But understanding the aura basics, it really matters just to start. So the emotional theme, every aura has an emotional theme. And what this means is when the aura type is living by alignment, it feels a certain thing. And when it's not in alignment, it feels a different thing. So for the manifesting generator, when you are living in a very aligned fashion, you feel this deep sense of satisfaction and fulfillment, which is the generator emotional theme. When the generator is living according to their design, the fulfillment is so strong and the sense of satisfaction is really deep. When the generator is not living in alignment, especially this is a manifesting generator, they feel a combination of frustration and anger. For the generator, it's just frustration. But for the man gen, because you have that manifestor wing, you also feel that anger. So when you start to feel that anger bubbling up or that frustration bubbling up, that's information for you that your aura is coming in contact with something that it needs to either approach differently or shift away from. That's what that information is for you as a manifesting generator. So a lot of times, with generators, what I find is that when they hit that, they want to quit at whatever they're doing. Their first instinct is to quit. But the thing about generator aura is the way that you enter something is as important as the way that you leave something, which we're going to get into in a second because we're going to cover your authority as well. But just know that all that frustration and anger really is just information for you that your aura is rubbing up against something that needs to be done differently than it's currently being done. It's not that you're like terrible at something or awful or something's never going to work out. It's just that the way that you're doing it right now is just not it. It's not correct in the moment. Kari says, haha, yes, all 3 of my kids are man gens. Holy moly. That's insane. I cannot even imagine that. Holy
so much energy. They must just be like boing, 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 boing.
I'm tired with 2 projector kids. I can't even imagine raising manifesting generators. Oh my god. That's nuts. That makes me laugh. So your emotional theme, when you have bumped into your emotional theme, I'd love to hear like your feedback on that. Like, since we did our reading and since I brought this to the surface for you, and you've been working with reading that, how accurate has that been for you and how has that informed your decisions? Be really interesting to hear.
With like being an emotional authority, or
no, with your emotional theme, so like frustration and anger or satisfaction, and how those things have fed you directionally in what needs to happen next.
For sure. I can tell you, even just like, well, here, I'll give you a parenting example because this has been us the last couple of days, right? The last month we were in Minnesota with family, right? And I was having deep conversations with like my best friend, with my mom. I was like relaxing at our lake place, like my parents' lake place, and I was like super fulfilled with what we were doing, right? I was like content and at peace because we were home, like grown up home, like growing up home, right? Not a lot of frustration happening there because it was just like it was so good. Come here, I haven't had a lot of time by myself. I haven't really been able to like dive into things like projects and like
that you love
doing things that like really, really not necessarily like fill my cup, but fulfill me in the sense of like mentoring and teaching and getting on trainings live and like that kind of stuff. I can tell you we have had a very frustrating and angry household the last couple days because it's like there is no space for me to like find that fulfillment right now in this season of life, So yeah, I can totally tell that.
Okay. Yeah, every generator that I work with, it's like the frustration is immediate, and it's such good feedback for them when they experience it, once they know what it is. Initially, it's very frustrating because they're like, why do I always feel this way? Why does this keep happening? And then once they know what it is and the information it can give them, they're like, oh, that's okay. Right. That makes more sense.
Right. And then like with my business, I mean, we've had this conversation so many times of just like so much frustration of like it not working when I was diving into like, not working, like into the whole network marketing business and like forcing that to work. There was so much frustration. And then that led to me like, okay, there must be something wrong with me. Right. Like trying to figure it out in all the different ways, but I was really still pigeonholing myself in a box, trying
Mm-hmm.
to make it work, which was causing frustration, which was
Mm-hmm.
causing just the spiral of all the things, right?
That's a great lead in to the next thing I want to talk about, which is your strategy. Because I find with generators, because you guys have so much energy and you can pull the energy when you need it, that the tendency is to initiate
Mm.
always, because
Mm-hmm.
you have the energy, you're motorized. So you're like, I can do it. You know, when you get presented with an opportunity or a project, or, you know, if you're in sales, like if you're watching this and you are in network marketing and you're a generator or something like that, then that message of go out and contact people and initiate that contact and initiate the sale, it's that is the message. And it's a very manifestor message, because it's very initiating, and that's specific to like 9% of people. It works. And then like the 70% of generators are like, this is not it. This doesn't work well, right? Because then when they tried to change the message, you're talking about, well, follow your own internal alignment, and like that also doesn't work, because that's a manifestor message as well. So for the generator, the strategy, or what I deem like how to play the game of life and win. The strategy of your aura is how you play the game of life to win. For the generator, it's response, waiting to respond. So this is the aura type that is designed to receive a sign from outside of themselves, to then register in their sacral, whether that's a good sign for them, whether that's a yes or it's a no. Okay. So what does this look like? This looks like, I always give this example. You're going to go on vacation, and in your head, you're like, I want to go to the beach. And as a generator, you have this image of like where you want to go on vacation. Most people, their next step is like start researching beach resorts, start like doing all these things, like initiating how that's going to happen. Well, for the generator, the point of the generator aura is to wait and to get signs of what's correct for them to move forward with. So then the generator is like driving down the street and they see a billboard of a beautiful beach scene, and they're like, oh, I was just thinking about going on vacation on the beach, right? Or they're, you know, they get a call from a friend who's also interested in going on vacation. That's another sign, right? So these external signs give the generator something to respond to. It gives them that sacral response. So the generator is led by their sacral energy, and their sacral energy is their gut instinct. It's a physiological feeling. Okay. So we talk about gut instinct a lot, but for the generator, it's literally a feeling in your whole body. It's like a lighting up of your whole body that you can feel all over. And when it's a strong yes, right? So in the sense of like business and interacting, like the way to run a correct business for the generator is in response, right? You have an idea for a concept or something, and you are waiting to get the sign for what's correct for you to pursue. And then when you have that sign of what's correct for you to pursue, people will start asking for those things, and then you get to produce those things, and then you get to see the outcome of that, right? Versus trying to initiate something and put something out there and force people to pay attention to it when nobody has really given you a sign or a signal or shown interest in what's happening. It's a very different method than anything we've been coached on ever when it comes to creation and success, is the living in response. Now, Lauren happens to be an emotional manifesting generator, so her strategy changes slightly only in that her authority, which is a component of your design that makes decisions, that teaches you how to make correct decisions, is emotional, meaning that this little triangle is filled in. This is her emotional center. People with emotional authority, so no matter what aura you are, if you have emotional authority, you have to wait a bit to make decisions. You can't just do that instantaneous sacral yes that pure generators can. When someone is a pure generator, or you know, a sacral generator, that means that their responses come pretty instantaneously, and they can trust that instinct and run with it in the moment. For an emotional authority, emotional generator, emotional manifestor, emotional any type versus a reflector who doesn't have an inner authority, the weight is very important, because you go through this cycle in your decision, and you have to feel out the feelings. And so you ride this wave, and the wave informs you moment to moment. Okay. So I always say, if you're making a big decision in your emotional authority, waiting at least 7 days, like wait a week before you make any such decision, so you can ride the waves, the highs, the lows, the, you know, all the kind of fluctuation that happens with an emotional wave, and then get to about 80% certainty. It's never really 100, but it's about 80, where you're like pretty sure that's correct for what I want to do. And then, you know, the thing is the yeses have to be consistent. So over time, it has to be a yes, 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 yes. Over time, it'll be a no, 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 no. And if you keep going back and forth between yes and no, that's usually an indicative that it's not the correct time. Even though it might be the correct thing, the timing is off and you need to wait until that adjusts. So that's like another signal. So in your emotional authority experience in relationship to your strategy, how have you found when you wait, right? Versus, because the other thing about emotional authorities that I find hilarious is that they tend to want to be spontaneous. And then the designs like my own, which are splenic or sacral, they who are meant to be spontaneous want to wait. And they're always second guessing their decisions. So it's always like that converse thing that happens with those two authorities, which I find hilarious. So how has your experience been different when you jump, you know, because you're emotionally high and you're feeling this emotional highness over something and you say yes, or the opposite, you're feeling low, low, low. So then you just, you know, react from that place versus like actually waiting a couple days and feeling out that emotional wave.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard because I'm like, I want to fast, right? Like I want to decide and do it now. Like if I feel the high, I feel the emotion, I'm going to do it. I want to do it now, which is still something I am like constantly working on. And I can totally tell, like, let's use the example of like purchasing courses, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about this,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how long ago, but like
Mm-hmm.
I, for so long, purchased courses on the emotional high of like, oh, I want to do this, FOMO, I got to do this, I got to do this. And then I purchase it. And then I get in there and I'm like, this isn't really what I wanted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, there's so many things like that. But it's also funny because I think about like when I wait to respond for signs, if I'm like, okay, God, give me a sign that this is the right way, they happen fast.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to remember to
be intentional
and step back and be like, okay, show me a sign because they will happen.
Yes.
And that has been this like, I don't want to use balance, but that has been the struggle I've had because I want to just like go into motion really fast and then I have to like pull myself back and be like, no, like being like, let's be intentional. Let's ask for the signs. Let's ride the wave, which is, it's hard to do when I like want to go fast.
Yes. And I will say two things about this. The first is what this process is asking of you is deep trust. This process is asking that you are in deep surrender to your relationship to God, to your relationship to the field. It's asking you to surrender the control that you think you have, which is hard in general when you're used to taking control. The second thing I want to say is that if you have trauma and flight is a part of your trauma response, this is going to be very hard. Okay? Trauma will make you want to run into and away from things. Just running in general. If you were raised by people who had trauma and this was their response, that conditioning will also wash upon you. Just because you have a defined sacral doesn't mean it can't be conditioned. It's easier to condition an undefined center, but you can still condition a defined one to behave differently. Okay? So trauma matters when it comes to this kind of thing, and it will affect your design as well. So if you do have a history of trauma or a lot, then getting trauma work is really important before you really begin to understand how to work with your design.
So what would that look like, let's say, using this as an example, and let's say, because I mean, we all have some type of trauma, right? Little T or big T trauma, right?
Absolutely.
So what would that look like in a flight response when it comes to like just what we were talking about?
So what I notice in my clients and also in myself, because flight is part of mine, is that when I'm asked to wait, it almost feels like physically uncomfortable. Like I get like nauseated and I have like weird physical responses to being asked to wait or being still. As a projector, a huge part of my design is stillness. Like Literally, if I'm not making intentional stillness, if I'm not laying my ass down to nap, if I'm not, my aura is a mess. So I have never been able to nap since I was a child. I literally had to be taken in a separate room at daycare because I refused to nap. I was the only child that would not nap out of a room of 30 kids. That's not normal for an infant, a little kid, to not do that at all. Mm-hmm. And at night, it was very hard for me to sleep. Mm. Letting go of control, just couldn't do it, you know? Mm-hmm. And I have a very traumatic birth story, as you know, like I was born with a crazy condition and I had open heart surgery at birth, and I didn't even get to be home with my mom 2 weeks after I was born. Nobody held me really. Like, imagine being an infant, how crucial that beginning part of your life is. And I was like in an incubator for 2 weeks. In excruciating pain, on drugs, nobody really touching me. The hypervigilance that creates in a small child is insane. That's like, yeah, I'm never closing my eyes ever again. Who knows what's going to happen?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy.
Right.
So when I'm asked to close my eyes and sit in meditation, I'm like, you know, like my whole body just wants to resist, you know?
Yeah.
And that's how trauma shows up. When you are in flight and you're asked to not do that, it feels like you're dying, like momentarily.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Because I think about the times when somebody tells me like, hey, you have to wait to do this. I'm like, nope, I'm going. Mm-hmm. Like, it's hard for me to like pull back and be like, okay, let's wait it out. I mean, I've gotten better over knowing this and like over the years and being more like aware and intentional, but I could feel that in my body when you were like that. I was like, nope, we gotta go.
Yeah, because waiting doesn't feel safe.
Right.
That's the thing. It doesn't feel safe.
Right.
If I wait, something bad's gonna happen. If I close my eyes, something bad's gonna happen. If I stop moving, something bad's gonna happen.
Right. Or I'm like missing something.
Yeah. So, you know, the manifesting generator is meant to move very quickly, but there's a very different energetic signature that the manifesting generator has when they're moving rapidly within their alignment versus within their trauma. Mm-hmm. It is not the same. It is not the same. A man-gen in alignment is a force to be reckoned with. They are just success after success. I mean, they're just launching all this stuff and really riding that wave. And we know a very successful manifesting generator mutually who is crazy, insanely successful. Her entire work has been around regulating her nervous system and being not traumatized.
Right.
And look at how that's changed her life. Right.
Well, so, I even think about like everything she touches
is gold.
It's like,
yeah. And that's the difference. That's available to every manifesting generator when they're in alignment. That's the difference.
So then when you're out of alignment, that's where the frustration
and the chaotic energy, like imagine moving that fast in chaos. It's like a tornado ripping through a town, you know, you're just shredding everything that you touch versus converting it into gold. That's the difference. Yeah. This is great. I'm so glad we're having this conversation. This is so important. I hope everyone watches this because this is so enlightening for every aura.
Yeah, it's such even just like that, because I can tell you, like, since I've been doing so much work on just like patterns and like things like that, since we had this last conversation, I have realized how much my body feels, I don't want to use the word safe, but feels safer when there's chaos around me.
Yes.
Versus when everything is
calm. Yes. Isn't that crazy?
Like, it's so crazy. But my brain will go crazy when I'm in chaos, but my body is like, it's okay. And then when I'm like, okay, we're gonna like meditate, or I'm gonna go sit in silence for a little bit, my body's like, what's happening here? Like, what's happening? That's
actually a PTSD response. So being really calm in chaos is actually PTSD. And that happens to me as well. Like, I would panic over like my creamer spilling on the counter, right? Or my kid making a mess. But if they slice their face open, I'm like, I got this. Like, I just immediately go into place where it's like, this is fine. Like, it's just disproportionate. It doesn't match.
Right.
That's a trauma response.
Right.
That is the brain being wired not correctly.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yes. And so this can affect your understanding of design, and it can affect the way you live your design. And this is part of the reason too why sometimes I'll talk to them and they're like, I don't feel like my design. I'm like, because you have trauma, because you have extreme conditioning in the form of trauma. And so you are living a traumatized life. You don't even realize it because it just feels like but you don't even know. Dude, when I started napping, I had to fight myself to nap. Like, I literally have started doing that this past year. In the middle of the day, I'm like, you're laying down for 15 minutes. And I would want to come out of my skin. I'm like, don't lay down. Don't lay down. I was like this weird, like, resistance that was like animalistic almost. Like, it was a fight, And then at first I couldn't close my eyes. I was just going to lay there. I'm just going to lay here, stare at the ceiling, or just going to lay here and like resist the whole time. And then finally, gradually, I started to close my eyes and I started to like, okay, I'm just going to rest my eyes. And then it was like, okay, finally I can fall asleep, I'm like, little by little began trusting that I was safe in that moment and I could not. It was a game changer. My energy is so different. Meditating every day, my energy is so different. Like being able to sit and be relish in the stillness, relish in no chaos, relish in what it feels like when things are calm and I am present has changed my life and it changed my entire business. So like, regardless of your aura, this is so important. And I hope that you grab this, if nothing else, and run with this understanding. Right. It matters in how you live your design. 100%. All right. Such a good conversation. Okay. So now we're going to start diving into a little bit more specifics to Lauren's chart. So her profile is a 2-5, which is actually quite uncommon. I don't run into a lot of 2-5s in all the charts that I've done. Profile is right here. So if you don't have your chart, I just added a feature to my website, shaktireels.com. Under services, you will see where it says get your free human design chart here. If you put in your birth information and write a little bit about why you're interested in learning about design, I will send you my version of the human design chart, which is a paid software that I use professionally. So I will actually send that to you and I will give you some resources that you can work with for your goal. So on there, you'll see it says profile. So the 2-5 is the Hermit Heretic, which is a very interesting profile combination, or in quantum human design, we would call you the responder and the visionary. So those are two other words to work with in the kind of quantum version of HD. So this is my daughter is a 2-4, and her 2 is like extremely apparent to me because she's naturally quite shy. She's not a person to be like very out there and want to be seen a lot. She really needs her time to like process something by herself. This is your desire for space and time alone, tucked away, processed to integrate before she's called out to serve. So the way the 2-line actually succeeds is when their brilliance is called forward. So with the generator, that's twofold in response. Not only are you waiting for respond as a generator, but also your profile line demands that of you, that you wait for your natural brilliance to be called forward. The 2-line is also the line of the natural genius or the natural brilliance. So usually people with 2s in their profiles have like this really specific gift that's unique to them, that really stands out, that they cultivate in that stillness and then gets called out by the other to share. I'm trying to think any other things about 2s that are top of mind. I think it's funny because I find that 2s often have RBF, like hardcore. Like 2s, it's like not intentional, that resting bitch face. It's just like because they're so internal and they're processing internally, like if they're not conscious of what their face is doing, they just look mad. Pretty much constantly. So I noticed like my daughter's a 2-4 and the 4 line's a very social line. She's super social, but it's like on her terms. So before she decides to be social, she will like be gauging from like a distance, like how safe she is to be social. And then she's like, okay, like then she makes that step, and she's 1 and I can tell that already in just the way she behaves. The 5 line is very challenging line. The 5 line to me is probably the most challenging profile line to live of all of them, because you are a mirror for everyone. So the 5 lines tend to be either a savior in the eyes of whoever's projecting that onto you, or a heretic, someone who is like evil, depending on who's projecting that onto you. That's simply because you are here to show people like their shit, basically, just by being who you are. You don't even have to do anything. You just, by existing, you provoke people into like their discomfort and their own like limitations. Most of the 5 lines that I know, whether it's 1-5, 2-5, 3-5, whatever, people tend to have this like thing about them where it's like they either feel drawn to them or they have like a rub. There's like a weird rub to that relationship. And it's because you, as the visionary, like you can see a greater plan. You can see beyond. You can see what other people can't see too. And so you're constantly kind of pushing the edges of like what people are like living by or doing, and that rubs people. It has a certain effect on people and how they feel about their reality. So your life path is this relationship between tucking away and processing and being internal, and then stepping out, and with what you've integrated, pushing people forward by being a visionary leader after you've integrated that in your stillness. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. So basically integrating it in my own before putting it out there to move people through it.
Correct. Yeah. Super important.
Mm-hmm. Which makes, I mean, I think about that in a lot of different like courses too I've launched, is like making sure that I'm embodying the work before I go and like teach it, right? And like bring someone through the process. It's like double checking, like, okay, am I this work? Like, am I embodying this work before I like go and try and have somebody else go through it, right?
Yep. It's another version of that. Yes. And also, how different is it for you when you are putting yourself out there and kind of forcing a message versus someone recognizing something in you and calling it out of you? How different does that feel?
I don't know what the word would be, but not motivating or inspiring, but like encouraging, to be like, oh, they see that in me, and then I can take that and run with that, versus me trying to create something and put it out into the world.
Yeah. Right on. Actually, this is a perfect segue into the next conversation we're going to have about centers. I circled these, your 3 centers that are completely open. Your head, your mind, and your will center. So you'll notice, like, for example, this center is white, but she has a gate. She has a gate activated there. In these, she doesn't have any gate at all. So if you open up your chart and you see that you have white, but you have gates, what that means is that energy center represents a certain theme. And those gates are like focus panels within those themes. So they focus in on a certain element of that center. Okay. So it gives you a filter by way you experience that center. But when you don't have any, you don't have a single filter for how you experience, in her case, her thoughts, her beliefs, opinions, or concepts, systems, or esteem, or boundaries, or willpower, or commitment. There's no consistency. There's no consistent access to that energy. So what that information is giving you is that it can fluctuate dramatically. When you have a totally open center, you're just experiencing all versions of the energy in those centers. You can move from being someone who's like super certain in your thoughts and in the way that you conceptualize, to having no trust at all that you know anything. Like, you're just like, I don't know anything. I'm completely confused, right? Or with an open will center, I see either narcissists, because they just have like overinflated sense of worth that's artificial, comes from insecurity, or I see doormats. Like, that's how that ego center shows up. Like, either abusing and overpowering someone, or just letting people run all over them, because they just have no way of understanding how that energy is supposed to be operating. And And this is the thing about transits, and the reason I have a whole membership around transits and why I teach transits is because when planets are transiting, they give you temporary access to certain gates and centers that you usually don't have. Like right now, the ajna and the throat are defined in the transits. So myself, who has an undefined ajna and undefined throat, I have more access to structuring my thoughts and communicating them than I usually do. It's more clear to me than it usually is natally, right? So this is the gift of the transit. I'm learning to work with the transit. Like if you're wanting to know when to launch something or when to talk about something or when to do something, you would wait for a similar transit. Does that make sense? Before you do that. So this is, or if you want to make a big commitment, then you wait for that will center to be defined when it's transiting in your case. And then when the transit comes in and the will gets defined, you're like, I can commit to something now. Like, what's there to commit for me, you know? This is why it's so important and why I think educating people on how transit works is so important for that reason. So yeah, just know if you're completely open, like you're susceptible to that. In this case, her spleen is undefined, but she has the 57. The 57 is the most intuitive gate in like all of design. So she, with the spleen center, we're talking about healthy. What's healthy for me, what's not healthy for me. When you have an undefined spleen center, you struggle with that. You don't fully know what's healthy for you, what's not healthy for you. Your immune system tends to be a little bit less strong than other people who have a defined spleen center. The way you experience fear is also very variable versus people who have defined spleen like myself, consistent access to fear. We have it. We have consistent access to that. But in your case, the 57, which is the intuition gate, this gives you some access to knowing intuitively if something is correct for you or not. So you're not totally out of the loop when it comes to like healthy, not healthy, right? So it gives you a filter is what that does.
Right.
Let's talk about these top, if anybody looks at their chart, these top two, your sun, your earth on your design side, your sun, your earth on your personality side. The reason those four matter is because together they make what's called your incarnation cross, which is like your destiny, basically. The whole reason why you're here and what you came to do with that, with your time on the planet. Your design side is where you carry, I should say, things like genealogy, ancestry, the physical path of your life. Your personality side is your soul purpose, your soul's direction, the thing that your soul came here to embody. Okay. And her design side, she has the gate 30, which is about passions and feelings. It's an emotional solar plexus gate. And then she has in her earth devotion and perseverance, which is like beautiful. What a beautiful combination to have on your design side. The challenge of these two, though, which I find really interesting, is with the 30, which is your design sun, is burnout and impatience. Because the feeling is so strong that you don't want to wait. Very strong, and so you end up burning yourself out because you're not waiting for right timing. Okay. And with the 29, it's right commitment. The 29 is a sacral gate. And it's about committing correctly to something so that you make sure you have the resources for it. Like you're absolutely sure that you know what you're committing to, that you know what you're grounding yourself in. So part of your like ancestral karma that you came here to resolve are those two things, which is a lot of the work you've done and that you struggle with is actually those things. This is actually part of your ancestry. This is part of your carnal embodiment. Okay. And on the other side, well, a couple mentions too, because you're a line 5 on both of these. So that 0.5, you'll notice your gates have what's called a line, a 0.5, and the line just like colors the gate. So it gives it like a little bit more specificity. In the gate 30, that line 5 is about recognition and dedication to transitory goals. So this is like literally telling you that you are never going to be 100% committed to like one goal. Like your goals are going to change a lot and they're designed to, right? Moment to moment, depending on what you're responding to that's correct for you. Your line 5 and 29 is a tendency. So you'll notice there's a little arrow pointing down. That means detriment. So that means that you're more likely to experience that gate in its shadow form than in its exaltation. So in your 29, you're more likely to experience the shadow of right commitment, which is about biting off more than you can chew. That line is definitely called overreach. So you literally take on more than you can properly commit to. That's your tendency.
Mm-hmm.
On your personality side, you have a very different element and essence to your soul's purpose. You have the 8, which is all about contribution and fulfillment, making a meaningful contribution to the world. And the challenge of that sun gate is feeling a sense of panic about your life purpose. People with the 8, when they're living in the shadow expression, are just terrified that they're wasting their life and that they're not going to contribute anything significant. That's a really big fear for people in the 8. In the 2-line expression, it's about service. So not only is it about contributing, but it's genuinely about being of service and feeling like what you have to give people serves them from a deep place. Okay. On your earth, you have power skills, also known as creation in quantum human design. And the challenge for power skills is actually fear and worry about money. That's like right there. Because the thing to know, and especially in your 2-line, this is all about investing in expertise to bring you rewards. So power skills is literally about networking and connecting so that you can absorb the wisdom of like people around you that know more than you, so that you can convert that for yourself. But the shadow of that is obsessive fear over money. And what's interesting is you have multiple markers in your chart that relate to money and sustainability and making money and using money and the fixation around money and not having enough money. And money is a freaking huge theme in your whole chart. It's like everywhere. It's in your north node. It's in your design, in your personality earth. It's in, where else? It's in your south node. So what's interesting, looking at your south node, north node, south node being the first kind of 30 years of your life, north node being where you go after that. For everybody, it's different, obviously. Your south node is in the 59 on both sides. And this is all about like sustainability. This is, again, a sacral gate. And this is literally about understanding how to be sustainable and what is sustainable for you, right? The first 30 years of your life. Your north node is in the 55 on both design and personality, which is the gate of faith. Basically, it's a concept of, it's known as abundance in traditional design, but also faith in quantum. So it is about being able to generate wealth from a place of faith and consistent connection to source. But the thing about the 55, it's also a love gate. It's what we call in human design a love gate. And when I do connection charts, the 55 is one of the mundane love gates that we look at, meaning personal love gates. And people with the 55 fantasize a lot. They tend to fantasize about the grass being greener on the other side and what it's like to be with someone else, you know, in a love relationship. Like, what if I wasn't married to this person? I was married to that person. Like, what if I slept with that person? What if I, like, these are the people who tend to have these fantasies that can oftentimes lead to, like, I don't know if I love this person or not. I don't know if I want to commit to this or not. I don't know. It leaves them in an I don't know place, which can be very uncomfortable to learn to live with as a desire, right? Or as a drive. So just knowing that you are designed to move into like abundance from a place of faith, but you have to be very cautious of the shadow expression of that gate, which leads you to like fantasizing and then like paralysis, you know, not really allowing yourself to fulfill that. I also noted in your chart that your Saturn is in the gate 38 on both sides, Saturn being the planet of challenge, and the gate 38 is literally half of the channel of struggle. And in this case, it's called the gate of the fighter or the visionary. So it's about knowing what to fight for, just knowing what to fight for. What is right for me to fight for? What is correct for me to take a stand on? What is the right thing for me to, basically back to that whole conversation of like commitment. What is the right commitment? What is the right thing for me to take, you know, plant a flag into? That is your whole challenge for this existence from on both your ancestry side and also your soul side. Like knowing that, distinguishing that is it for you. Like that's the big teacher here in your design. And also in your Pluto, I noted, because Pluto is a planet of like shadowy shit. You know, it's shadowy, but it's a deep teacher. It's a planet of transformation. And whenever I look at someone's Pluto, I'm like, oh, this is what you came to like deeply transform. Like in the pits of your being, you came here to transform this. And for you, it's gate 1. And gate 1 is all about self-expression and purpose. So like what you came here to deeply transform is being your authentic self 100%, and having other people see that and be drawn to that, because you also have the channel 1-8, which is the complete channel for the one, and teach people how to be themselves in the process of you being yourself, right? But also within that is activating the sense of purpose that comes from just being who you are. And it's important that people with the one understand, like, your purpose is literally being who you are. It's not anything else. So if you're living a life where you're not being who you are fully, like, you're off mark. You're off purpose automatically. That's really important for you to know.
I'm taking so many notes because I feel like a lot of this stuff, yeah, we talked about it before, but it's just like hitting so different.
Of course, you're in a different place. That's like when you read a book again after you read it the first time, like a year later, and you're like, holy shit.
Right. And it's so crazy because, like, yes, all the money stuff comes up, like, no matter how much money we have coming in, no matter how much money work I do with like my mindset, no matter how much I'm like not focusing on it, there's always that like deep fear and worry of like money.
Yeah.
So but it's also on the flip side, so reassuring to know that like money and wealth will come to me when I'm aligned. What did you say? Like from faith, like building from faith and connected to source.
Yes.
Wealth will come versus being so like, I got to do this to make money. Oh my gosh, money's going to run away. I got to do this to make money. Right. And just really trusting, which honestly, we've been talking about this for like the last 5 years of like really trusting God and trusting that like that path. But it's also crazy because like over the last however many, you know, like months I've been doing my own work, is like I have been diving so much into me being me, right? And like sharing that, and also now learning or teaching like moms how to really deepen that relationship with themselves, because I've been deepening that relationship with myself. But it's also interesting because it's like women and moms that I meet that actually come into my physical world, like I meet them and they're like, I can physically touch them, right? They get a totally different vibe and energy, I feel like, than the people who see me on social media. And it's not that I'm two different people, it's just the people who are in my physical world with me, it's like they get it and they're like, yes, like I want to be in your world, I want to be with you, tell me everything you know. Where it's like on social media I'm trying to be seen and I'm trying to like be out there, you know, to get that message across. Or like,
and that's an aura dynamic though, because you have a warm enveloping aura, that's the generator aura, and you pull people in. So when people feel your aura, they want to be in it, you know. So that's why it feels different. It's still possible, people can still feel that, but you have to change the way you communicate, likely. You have to figure that out, because what's happening is your aura is not coming across. You're not communicating in the energy of your aura. So a good exercise for you would be to meditate on, how do I speak from a place of my warmth and the place of my like generator aura? What does that voice sound like? And I'll tell you right now, I'm going to look at your Mercury. So you have the 16, you have the 16. So looking at your 16, the gate of enthusiasm, the gate of zest. So when you are speaking from a place of enthusiasm and joy for like the things that really light you up, people are paying attention. Your enthusiasm is really important, like particularly for you, because your Mercury is there. So that's very important.
So basically speaking about what excites me. When I'm in excitement, when I'm like
Yes.
feeling the excitement,
Yes.
share about that.
Yes. Yes. Hold on, because my daughter's crying and I don't
Yep,
think my
I'm
husband
here.
hears her. So I'm gonna be like, hello.
Hello.
You can stare at my
Okay.
beautiful altar.
Oh, yeah.
In the meantime.
I'm just reading your guys' comments. Is anyone else a Manny Gen and struggle with all this stuff too? It's like, it's one of those things where I feel like when I learned all this, I was like, whoa, this makes so much sense. It's so crazy.
Okay. He is now with her. So I am sorry about that, but I had to still working on projects. This is like part of the the all night long projecting. Yes. So part I just want to mention too, like this is part of what I do in coaching is translating your chart into action, because it's okay, I can give you a reading and we have done a reading, and or I can send you a PDF. A lot of people just buy the PDF, then you're going to get it and you're going to be like, okay, great, how do I use this? Because I don't know.
Right. It's overwhelming.
And you're like,
it's overwhelming.
How do I use this? It's a whole other language. It's a whole other. So I actually just opened up a mentorship container, very limited spots for 6 months. That's very high touch in this sense, because it's like there's so much to unpack and to use. And so I'm incorporating EFT as well to balance your nervous system, because we just talked about trauma. We just talked about walls. We just talked about how when you hit that, it's like paralysis. Like you can't do what you're used to doing. You don't know where to go next. You don't know how to use your alignment, right? So I'm now creating containers for this because I see the need. I've done so many readings and still have clients hitting the walls, and I'm like, crap, like there's that again. And I have my course, the Sovereign Sessions, which starts July 18th. Part of what I do in that course is we cover the basics of your design and then go into like co-creation by design. Like, okay, if you have an open head, how does that affect your ability to consciously co-create versus someone who has a defined head versus someone who has this gate versus that gate? Like, what does that do when you're in the process of manifesting? How does that change? So if you're looking for a course, this is the next thing I'm offering, but it's the last time it'll be live. So this is kind of like a genius opportunity for you to get this kind of like face-to-face and also learn course material, because then after this, it'll just be a course. It is self-paced. So that is going to be changing. I had the link up here and then it like disappeared, but that is like my next thing that is upcoming. The mentorship is kind of open year round, so it's like it's a deeper commitment. The course is only 12 weeks, so it's a little bit less of a commitment, and more, there's going to be 25 students, so it's a little less personal than the one-to-one where you're like and we're like looking at all your stuff, you know. It changes the dynamic when that's happening. So it depends on what kind of commitment you're ready for, just saying. But yeah, so what's funny for me about your story too is like, I feel like you constantly, everything revolves around money because you were designed to experience that so effortlessly, but it got like flipped somehow in your trauma and in your energy. Because not only do you have all of these money gates everywhere, but you have the 214, which is a channel of the beat. It's all about knowing how to receive and spend, how to receive and spend, how to be in relationship to money. It's like the beat, having your, being on the pulse of prosperity. And then you're like struggling, and I'm like, why? Like, when I look at your design, I'm like, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be like living it, like that's how you are supposed to designed to be. And you have the 5539, you have the whole channel of emoting. So, but the thing about that channel too, it's a very moody channel. It's very melancholic. So people with the 5539 are like, oh, the lows are just like, oh, so intense. And then the highs are like, there's this like hee-ha that happens with that channel that's very intense. So the thing about that channel of emoting is you have to be in the right mood to do things. That's really important. Your mood is so important. Like the right mood to make love, the right mood to travel, the right mood to learn something new, the right mood to launch a podcast, the right mood to, you know, write a blog. Like your mood governs everything. So if you're not in the right mood, you're just doing it not well. You're
Right.
struggling,
Well,
you know?
not aligned, because I'm
Yeah.
just like, I'm doing this because I should do this.
Right. And so when I hear your money story and I look at your chart, what I see is someone who is not being in the right mood to like follow the correct interests. They're like, not only are they not listening to their mood and their sacral response, but they're also not allowing themselves to look at all these other things that could bring them the ease that they are naturally gravitating towards. Like the reason you have so much resistance with the money story is because you know there's a naturalness there. You can sense it. You can sense that it's meant to be easier than it is. You know that. Like your design is telling you this is not meant to feel like this. And so you're like searching for it because you can feel the lack of resonance with where you currently are. That's what creates the hype. Right? That's what creates that. I'm getting chills as I'm saying that to you because I know that it's true. I feel that when I look at your chart. It's like a physical feeling in my body. Right? So what I'm going to offer you is how can you be in that naturalness right now? How can you immediately stop doing anything that's not the right mood for, that you don't find creative joy in, and give yourself permission to just look at everything that brings you joy and explore it all and unpack it all and just live in the joy of that experience. Like what would so you have the 58, which is the joy of mastery, and you have it in your Uranus, which is interesting because Uranus is like, it's like what shakes you up. I feel like your Uranus is like the revolutionary, like, it's like very Aquarian energy. It's very like just shake things up type of planet. That's how I experience it. And your 58 on both sides is in it. It's like your internal revolution comes from finding your joy. And if you're not doing that, you're not revolutionizing anything. There's not any. And what's going to end up happening when you hit 38, which is when your Uranus opposition is going to happen, I get a lot of people that come to me like right before their 30s, at 38 to 40, and then after 50, because those are all major astrological cycles. You have your Saturn return, your Uranus opposition, your Chiron return in your 50s. So when you hit that 38 to 39 mark, you are going to be absolutely looking at your joy, bar anything else. And anything in your life that is not bringing you joy, anything in your life that doesn't fit that self-expression, purpose, joy, is just going to disappear. Literally everything. That could be your marriage. That could be your job. That could be like anything that doesn't work like that. So I just warn everybody, when you hit Uranus opposition, just know. If it ain't working, it's gone. That's just for you to know. If it's inauthentic in any way, out the door. That's what Uranus opposition is about.
And how would we, so then you go back to then, you know, your strategy of waiting to respond before knowing what truly is part of that, right? Part of my self-expression, part of my purpose, part of my joy, part of what I'm here to do. Because sometimes when it lights me up right away and I'm really excited, I'm on the high.
So you know? Can you be with that and not do anything?
I feel like I've been getting better at being able to do that and being able to like.
Can you hold that feeling in your body?
For how long?
Yeah, see? that's what happens.
Yeah.
Because it feels like too much almost. Like holding it and letting it be in your body and not doing anything is maddening.
Yeah.
Like it almost feels like you're gonna die.
Well, yeah, because I feel like when I'm super excited about something, it's like, yeah, what's the action? Like I need to take an action because I'm like, you know, so like let's say it's like, oh, I get this really awesome idea for something, and I'm like, oh, this is so awesome. Like this would serve so many women. What's my action? Put out a course, put everything down, get ready, throw it out there, right? And now I'm learning to like sit in it a little bit longer. Or
so
like,
that's also part of your 16, by the way. Part of your 16 makes you that way. People with the gate 16 want to just jump into whatever they're enthusiastic about right away. Like they just, but they don't have the corresponding gate, which is the 48. So the 48 is what makes you really good at looking at details and finalizing that, like getting deep knowledge about what you're excited about. But when you just have the 16, you're missing half of that. So you jump ship too soon. That's part of the 16. So here's my recommendation. If I were coaching you, if we were like in a mentorship container and you brought that to me, this is what I would say to you. I want you to get a notebook that's just for your ideas. I literally just want to get you a notebook that's just for your inspirations, just for the things that light you up, just for the things that hit you like lightning, that you really feel something about. And when you have it, I want you to write it down, the whole thing, write it down. Then I want you to go like do a workout. That's what I want you to do. I want you to go put on a workout, and I want you to work out. So you can move that energy through your body, which you should be doing anyway because you're a generator. And that's very important for staying healthy if you're a generator. So I want you to go write it down and move your body and then see how you feel afterwards. I guarantee you'll feel different than if you just had the idea and didn't do anything at all with that energy, right?
Right. So it's
and
almost
then
like
hold it. Hold it. It's not going to go anywhere.
Here's the thing with holding it, because I'm like, how do you just, like, what does that look like? How do you just hold something?
What an interesting question.
You know I'm coming with all the how questions because that's
Write that down. Write down, how do I hold something? And I want you to literally spend like 20 minutes journaling on that. This is like what a coaching call looks like, by the way, guys. This is literally how I am when I'm coaching. How does it look like when I hold something? What a fascinating question. For so many reasons. That's like so deep for so many reasons. Because think about, how do I hold grief? How do I hold joy? How do I hold confusion? How do I hold misery? How do I hold, do you see where I'm going with that? Like, that's a deep question, and it involves you really looking at the ways that you hold everything else in your life.
Right. Well, every feeling I feel like you kind of hold in a different way depending on what it is. But like as you're talking, I think about like when I am holding an emotion, I don't know if I hold it long enough to actually process and move through the emotion. Right? So it's like a lot of it's stuck energy within me.
Yep.
Which could make it very hard for me to receive things.
Absolutely.
Right? Because the energy is constantly stuck within me.
Yeah. And you can't embody if you can't process.
You can't embody if you can't process.
Because embodying is a process. So how are you going to embody if you can't process fully? Embodiment is the end of the process. Like, if you can't get to the end of that process, you can't embody, which literally means to hold in your body anything.
Right. Interesting.
So that's a great question.
So this has been
already a lot of information, and we're still not even done. Like, there's still more planets, there's still more things I could look at in her chart, but I really just wanted to cover the main things that stood out to me in her chart that I think other people would receive a lot from. And we had really insightful conversation about trauma, really insightful conversation about, like, what does a coaching session look like? Like, how do you work with this? What does it look like to actually ask questions about application? Like, all of that matters. And it changes the way you work with this wisdom. You know, it doesn't stop at a reading. A reading is the beginning. A reading is really your initiation into the wisdom. But after that, there's like so much that comes with this kind of work. It's really deep.
And I feel like the powerful part of it is like we talked about before, is like not just getting the information, but really having somebody like you who can help you process through it, and then being able to be in your life and being like, this pattern keeps happening, or this thought keeps happening, or this frustration keeps happening, or this keeps happening. How can I move through it? How can I shift it? How can I use my design to really like get in alignment with my design versus keep running up against the thing?
So we call that living the experiment of your design. And that's the phrase for a reason, because human design is an experiment and it's ongoing. And once you know about it and you start living it, you're living the experiment of your design. And everything is learning and nothing is a mistake. And everything is just revisiting core principles and moving through that and giving yourself a lot of grace. As a 3-line, I'm like, mistakes are my jam. I make them all and I'm really good at them. And I've learned that my mistakes are like my golden ticket. Like the more mistakes I make, the faster I become wise at stuff. And that's something that design gave me. And so I stopped looking at my life as one mistake after another. And I started looking at my life as this giant experiment, which I'm like a great scientist at. And I now, when I coach, it comes from a deep place of embodiment and wisdom because I've done so much, because I've made so many mistakes, because of, you know what I'm saying? So this is the kind of stuff that design gives you, is permission to be who you are. And it gives you this validation that's super deep, that goes beyond anything superficial that you've ever thought about yourself. You know, it's just pure fucking magic. It's what it is.
It's
deep.
really cool. It's really cool.
Really deep. So thank you for letting me have you for this time and for going through your design again. This was so fun to revisit and reconnect with you over this. If you can follow Lauren, if you're interested, if you're a mom and you're needing help with sustainability and motherhood, she's really gifted at that. That's her passion. That's something she's really, really amazing at. So I tagged you in this so they can follow you and seek you. Furthermore, my Sovereign Sessions course, which is the Manifestation by Design course, is upcoming. So I will link that below. That's the next most recent thing I have that's like deep, a deeper container than just superficial stuff. But I'll also link my Aura Basics course, which I talked about. All of that is on my site anyway. So just my general website, you can walk through it and learn all the things. But again, thank you so much for this. This was fantastic. Thank you for watching live. And if you're watching the replay, thanks for hanging with us. Good night, my friend. Bye.